Konnichiwa, friends. I am Sekai X Arts and Animations, and today I'm going to be continuing my series on designing my own Pokemon games, Pokemon Song and Pokemon Dance. In the last video, I designed the 2 protagonists and the 3 starter Pokemon, so I'm just going to be picking up where I left off. So right here, I'm designing what I imagine the Pokemon professor would be like in these games, Eliana Kanzan. I imagined her as a very young professor, having just graduated from wherever Pokemon professors graduate from. They have to graduate from somewhere, right? Anyways, I also imagined that she graduated a year or 2 early, making her even younger. Because of this, many of her colleagues don't like her or don't take her seriously, viewing her as just a kid who's there to mess around and not as someone who's passionate about Pokemon research. As such, I feel like Professor Kanzan is not a very confident person and is more soft-spoken and reserved. Still, she's very excited about Pokemon, and because the other professors' view of her, she feels an extra need to prove her dedication. With all of that in mind, I kind of tried to design Professor Kanzan more like another trainer rather than a professor, because I felt it would help her look younger. I of course put her in the traditional lab coat, but I styled it to be a little more fun. I also made her hair a bit younger and more fun as well. I also gave her little lavender Mary Janes because I think it helped play to her young nature. Even still, I had her working on a tablet, trying to show that she's always doing her best to contribute. In the game, I feel like based on her colleagues' view of her, they probably set her researching these 2 legendaries, whom they're sure don't exist, just to get her out of their hair. By the way, I don't mean any of the other professors that have shown up in-universe, like Professor Kukui or Professor Oak. The people that bullied her are totally random, unaffiliated professors. Okay, moving on, I'm going to be designing the legendary Pokemon for Pokemon Song, Lyria. Now when I think of song in reference to animals, I usually think of birds, so I'm going to make Lyria a bird. I also want to add some elements of music to her, so I'm going to give her 2 sort of feathers on her head shaped like treble clefs. In addition, I'm going to give her 2 tail feathers that are like rainbow iridescent and put some musical scales on it. And on each of her giant wing feathers, I drew little random music notes. When I drew the font for Pokemon Song and Pokemon Dance, I knew what colors I wanted for each of the legendaries. For Song, I felt that teal green would really suit it well for some reason, so naturally, Lyria is going to be mostly green, except for her tail, which is going to be kind of multicolored rainbow. Of course, just like with my starters, I wrote a little mock Pokedex entry for Lyria. It's not perfect, I'm not super well versed in the world of Pokedex entries, but I did my best. And lastly for this video, I'm going to be designing the other legendary Pokemon, this time for Pokemon Dance, and this will be Pyromance. Now when coming up with an animal for dancing, I definitely had a lot more trouble than when I was coming up with the inspiration for Lyria. Eventually, however, I settled on a butterfly. The way they float in the breeze is kind of like a dance, right? For some reason, I've always loved the idea of a metal fairy type, so that's what I went with for Pyromance. Instead of legs, I gave her a little, drill-like appendage, which I imagined would spin really fast all the time, keeping Pyromance balanced like a top. I did this because I felt in one way or another, the dance Pokemon should always be in motion. To accent this drill, I gave Pyromance a metallic skirt. It just looked wrong without it for some reason. Of course, since Pyromance is a butterfly, I gave her rainbow wings to match Lyria's rainbow tail. I also left a hole in her heart because, I don't know, why not? Alright, so here are my 2 legendaries next to Professor Kanzan. I do think my designs would need some editing and tweaking to actually, be sprites in a Pokemon game, but Nintendo has teams of people working on important designs like this, so I think for one person's first draft, I did pretty good. Stick around for Song and Dance Part 3, hopefully coming out next week when I start designing the gym leaders. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one.